During the college entrance exam, I did a flamingo pose in public. As teachers and classmates stared in shock, I was taken away by the invigilators. Before leaving, I shouted into the classroom, "No worries! Next time, I'll show you. The crow flies!"
Are you okay?
The invigilator asked, while firmly gripping my arm. Afraid I'd do something crazy again. "I'm fine." I shook my head.
Teacher, have you seen this before? Never.
"Well, now you have." Then, I suddenly broke free from his grip, stepped onto the railing, and flew 5 stories into the air. As I accelerated in free fall, my body hit like a pile of mud, splat on the ground. How gruesome it was, I couldn't see, because the moment I died, my consciousness was instantly pulled away. Then, when I opened my eyes, I was back in the exam hall. Then, the broadcast announced again.
Exam begins. Candidates, start answering.
Yes, I was back to the moment before the exam, and this loop had happened 40 times. For the loop's pattern, I've summed up a few points. The loop's time frame, from when the exam starts to when it ends, the bell ringing across campus, marks that final second. Through the latest test, I confirmed death would start early for the next loop. Third, all loops don't affect each other. At first, when I found myself stuck in a loop, I was a bit cautious, thinking if the loop ends while I'm doing something unspeakable, that'd be social suicide. But as the loops kept increasing, I started trying some bold moves. From quietly peeking at others' papers, to later snatching papers right in front of the proctor and memorizing answers. But this loop got pretty boring, so I mustered the courage. In recent loops, to test death's effect on the loop, don't look around.
The proctor's words
Broke my train of thought. I looked up at the clock on the classroom wall, realizing from now on, I need to think long term, because from now on, we'll expand from this exam into a 2.5-hour party. To do that, the first step is to think how to leave my exam room. I didn't plan much, just acted on impulse. I jumped up on the exam desk and did a flamingo stand. While the proctor and students were stunned for a sec, I stepped on the desk, leaped over the proctor, and ran outside. "Stop him!" The proctor behind yelled.
Stop him.
The proctor behind yelled. Then, at the stairway ahead, suddenly appeared a proctor with a red armband, like a basketball player, arms wide to block me. I swerved left. My elbow accidentally hit his ribs. He yelped, "Ouch!" "Sorry, sir," I said with hands clasped, then kept running downstairs. At the lobby entrance, 2 guards sat. I rushed past. They froze 2 seconds before standing. But I was already outside the building. The sun outside was blinding, even scorching. But it didn't slow me down. Outside the school gate stood a crowd of parents. When they saw me bursting out, they froze. The officer on duty saw, dropped his work, and ran toward me. I saw my chance, found a gap in the crowd, and bolted toward it. Once in the crowd, I dodged nimbly and widened the gap from my pursuers. After crossing several blocks, I finally slowed down. If the loop ends like this, I'll be on the news for sure. For the next while, I wandered the streets aimlessly. Then a bus slowly pulled up in front of me.
Katie, you coming?
I nodded, got on and paid. Found a seat by the window. Only when the bus's engine roared to life did I realize I had no idea where this bus was going. The bus was cool inside, and there were few passengers. Even when it stopped, no crowds of students noisily piled on. The tall buildings and shops outside gradually disappeared, slowly turning into low suburban houses. It seemed this long-distance bus would take me far away, somewhere I'd never gone alone before. But just as I was about to ask where the bus was headed to, in the blink of an eye, I was back at my exam desk. So it seems, the 2.5-hour loop was still too short, so I could never reach that bus's final stop.
The exam begins. Candidates, start answering.
The announcement rang out again. This was my 44th loop. I still, like a reflex, followed the escape route from the previous loop and bolted out after the mess of my earlier escapes. This time, it was like walking through an empty room. Soon, I made it to the teaching building's first floor. But when I looked at the entrance, I was completely stunned, because the 2 guards, who should have been sitting calmly at the door, were now pinning down a test taker. I didn't know him at all, but his helpless look suggested he'd been struggling for a while. I couldn't believe what was happening, but the fact right before me was undeniable. This loop had a new event before I could think. The patrolling teacher grabbed me from behind. Then, several more teachers pinned me down. Next, like that other student, I was escorted to an empty classroom. The situation's been reported.
These 2 disrupted the exam.
Soon,
Someone will take away.
the teachers whispered and prepared to leave, leaving only 2 security guards to watch us, ignoring everyone else. I quickly said to the student, "Hey man." But before I could finish, he beat me to it and asked back, "You're looping too?"
Surprised by his question, I was a bit dazed.
But I nodded. How many times? This is the 4th.
You?
4 times. This guy only went through 4 loops before deciding to flee the exam. Counting this time, it is already the 44th.
What? 44 times.
The test taker muttered, cupping his hands in a bow. He must think I'm a senior. Are there others? Oh, looping like us. So far, besides you, I haven't found anyone. What is your name?
I'm Lin Wu. Exam room, 2nd floor, 1st room.
Okay, got it. Next loop, I'll find you. Saying that, I shoved past the security guard, kicked open the door, and without looking back, went down the hall, up to the top floor.
Hey, calm down. Don't do anything rash.
The guard and teacher watched me nervously. I waved my hand, and amid everyone's screams, took a small step forward. Honestly, inside, I was a bit nervous. What if the loop stops? But if I don't try, how will I know? The moment I hit the ground again, when I opened my eyes, I was back in the exam hall.
The exam begins. Please.
Before the broadcast finished, I burst out of the exam room, heading straight for the first room on the second floor. I pushed the door open and shouted inside, Lin Wu, I'm here! Lin Wu tossed his exam paper aside. Then, excitedly, he ran up to me. The proctor in the exam hall, seeing this, was furious. He rushed out.
You two, stop!
This time, I ran to the second floor first, meet up with Lin Wu. This changed the previous solo escape route. So what would happen this time? I had no idea. Sure enough, the proctor who should be upstairs, the exam supervisor, was now already at the stairwell to the first floor. He saw Lin Wu and me, rushed over, trying to catch us. I skillfully pressed against the wall, dodging his hands to stop him from chasing us again. I had to use my elbow to jab him in the ribs. The proctor fell to his knees in pain. Taking that chance, Lin Wu and I quickly ran toward the stairwell. But then I heard the proctor say behind us,
I'll get you next time.
I stopped and turned to look at the proctor, staggering to his feet. Sir, I asked tentatively, are you in the loop too? Hearing this, the proctor's expression shifted from stern to shocked. Just then, other security and teachers arrived.
I'll take these two students down. Everyone else, go back to your posts.
So, Lin Wu and I followed that proctor to an empty classroom. The proctor just closed the door. I asked right away, Teacher, which loop is this?
This is my second time catching you. But as for loops, this counts as the first.
Wait, even the teacher entered the loop.
Even in the loop, how dare you cause such a commotion? Aren't you afraid the loop ends suddenly?
I stayed silent because at that moment, I was still thinking about why the loop expanded. After all, I've been through over 40 loops. Why only these last few times did new loopers join? I kept pondering all this. Suddenly, a terrifying thought exploded in my mind. Excited, I shouted, almost incoherently.
A looper's death, ending the loop early. Bring the new loopers!
To test my theory, I decided to run another experiment. Of course, the proctor beside me, upon hearing my plan, was first worried. I smiled and said once they had been through as many loops as me, they'd understand. So, early by the proctor, we arrive at the school rooftop.
After you die, what happens to us?
Probably just whoosh, back to when the loop started.
I yawned, then walked straight to the edge. Those two thought, I braced myself mentally, but didn't expect to pause at all. One foot stepped straight into the air, and I fell down with it. Until the very last moment, I could still hear Lin Wu's shouts and the proctor's gasps.
Exam start.
The broadcast rang out again. Then came the sound of me rushing out. As agreed before the loop, the proctor and Lin Wu waited for me downstairs. Then the proctor would take us from exam room to exam room to ask,
Anyone else in the loop?
Yes, that is how we did it, bluntly asking. As I expected, after checking over a dozen rooms, we finally found the new looper. A panicked test taker. He timidly raised his hand, like a child who'd done wrong. But can't blame him. Just entered the loop. Hadn't processed what happened, and we found him. Next, Lin Wu and I exchanged a look, and rushed into the room, grabbed that test taker, dragged him out of the exam hall. The invigilator saw us, grabbing someone so openly, and tried to stop us. But the proctor outside yelled,
None of your business. Keep invigilating.
and so we walked and explained to the new looper what was happening. What's your name?
I'm Wu Qiang.
The examinee paused and asked.
What should we do now?
The four of us just sat under the big tree outside the exam hall, thinking for a long time. Even discovering the new rule of the loop didn't seem to help us find the cause at all.
Let's just do our own thing.
I looked at Proctor and Wu Qiang's expressions. Their gloomy faces lit up at Lin Wu's suggestion, their eyes almost sparkling.
If you find any clues related to the loop, let each other know.
The proctor stretched, looking ready for action. After saying goodbye, I was left sitting alone. I'm a pro who's been through dozens of loops. The world within 2.5 hours now holds no appeal for me. Later, after who knows how many more loops, Lin Wu was the first to come find me.
Did you find any clues about the loop?
No.
Hey, how long do you think this loop will last?
Lin Wu leaned against the wall, looking tired of the loop. I knew it was time, so I suggested, let's go ask the proctor. Maybe he found something. We soon found the proctor in the school library. A teacher is a teacher. He was actually using the loop to read widely in the library. Teacher, did you find any clues about the loop? The proctor didn't answer, but just led us to a corner of the library where today's newspapers were. He picked up a paper, opened it, and pointed to a small section. Particle collision experiment may reveal time's secrets. The word time pierced my eyes like a needle. So I looked up at the proctor. The experiment site is in our city suburbs, and the start time is exactly when this exam ends.
But it is still unclear if our loop is linked to this experiment.
Then we can just go ask at the lab.
I thought the same.
The proctor put the paper back.
But the drive to the lab is over 2.5 hours.
His words left me dazed for a while. It reminded me of sitting on that bus, never able to reach the terminal's disappointment.
So I tried browsing books in the library to find theories about this experiment. But so far, no progress at all.
Faced with this obvious, yet distant goal, everyone fell into thought again. Just then, Wu Qiang came to the library and saw us all there. He quickly pulled from his pocket a car key.
Guys, you won't believe what I just did.
Wu Qiang said excitedly.
Near the school gate, at that 4S door, there is a convertible sports car. It took me several loops to figure out where they hid the key.
Sports car.
Yeah, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Wanna go for a ride?
Well, if it is a sports car, maybe it won't take 2.5 hours, I said, glancing at the proctor. But a new problem lay ahead. Driving a car that hits 60 in seconds at full speed through town for 3 students without licenses and a teacher is way too hard.
Ever heard of practice makes perfect?
Wu Qiang jingled the key, looking totally at ease.
Let's try it.
Lin Wu and the proctor looked at me. Under their gaze, I swallowed hard. After a long pause, I nodded. Even with the loop, I don't know why, I was still hesitating. The next second, I saw a breathless Wu Qiang start the engine and floor it in one swoop. With the roar of the engine and the loud exhaust, the car with its motorcycle crashed into the 4S door. As glass door, shards of glass rained down on us. I had to shut my eyes. When I opened them, the next second, all I saw was a truck hitting straight lines. Only then did I realize what I was hesitating about. We had started a race with no turning back, a race filled with endless death. After causes each ending in a fiery crash, the 4 of us gathered again to discuss if our plan was even feasible.
At least I didn't crash into the store wall.
Wu Qiang crossed his arms.
Besides, at this speed, we'll reach the lab in under 2.5 hours.
It is not about your driving skill.
The proctor paused mid-sentence.
Of course, your driving experience matters too. But the problem we're facing now is more serious than we thought.
Yes, these crashes alone have created over 20 new loopers. If that experiment is the key to breaking the loop, then our only option is to keep dying over and over. Trying to reach the lab within 2.5 hours. That means not just 20 more, but many more loopers. Even the whole school could join the loop.
But there is no turning back now. Right.
The proctor stared at me.
To end the loop, I had to keep trying, keep dying.
It sounds ironic. We started the chaos, yet we must create more chaos to end it. Now, I heard screams.
From the school building, then laughter. I knew. The chaos had begun. Just over 20 loopers were enough to form a mob. But this chaos seemed to bring us some benefits. The chaos caused by the new loopers greatly helped us escape the exam hall once, twice, 3 times. I don't know. But the deaths covered every imaginable car accident. The driver, Wu Qi, was full of confidence. For him, it was like playing a racing game with infinite response and a real physics engine. So after the horrific crash, we actually managed to win through the city at high speed. When we left, the car reached top speed. The roaring wind made my ears ring. I could only faintly hear Wu Qiang's voice shouts. When the car smoothly stopped at the institute's gate, the exam proctor quickly got out.
We have 23 minutes left. Hurry up.
We rushed into the institute. Luckily, it wasn't big. We found it after a few loops. The upcoming experiment, particle collider.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
An old professor asked.
You can't run the collision test.
The proctor, panting, said,
Not sure of the details, but it could very likely trigger a time loop.
Time loop.
The researcher, in disbelief, stared at us 4.
Yes, we know we sound crazy. That is because we've looped over 100 times. Each loop lasts 2.5 hours. And the reason I think it is linked to this test is because your start time exactly matches our loop's end time. And this test isn't meant to explore time secrets.
Wait, you mean the loop you experienced only lasts 2.5 hours?
The old professor's eyes lit up. Other researchers looked shocked.
Professor, we did it. Pause the experiment for now.
The old professor raised a trembling hand, then gestured for us 4 to follow him. Clearly, this wasn't the frantic proof of being loopers I had imagined at all. We were all amazed how smoothly it went. So, the particle collision experiment was paused. Following the old professor, we arrived at a room that looked like a classroom. In the center, a huge blackboard was densely covered with formulas. The old professor stood in the corner of the board.
The real purpose of this experiment was actually to observe whether there exists a passage connecting other dimensions. We plan to use high-energy proton beams to strike the superconducting ring, tearing space-time at the Planck scale, thus verifying the brain cosmology theory.
A wormhole.
You know.
The old professor was surprised that the invigilator could understand.
During the loops, I read a lot of books on this topic. I know a little.
During the experiment, one end of the wormhole was anchored to a specific time, which was the start time of the experiment. The other end, due to the high-speed motion of the proton beam, experienced time dilation. Theoretically, it should drift to 2.5 hours ago. That is 2.5 hours. But now, it seems this time anchor has actually caused macroscopic objects to loop. And even 4 people looping together. It seems this experiment still has many things we don't know about.
Well, at first, it was just me. But later, I found that the death of a looper would cause the loop to end early and pull in a new looper. So I brought in the 3 of them. After hearing this, the old professor opened his mouth slightly, and it took a while to snap out of it.
Unbelievable.
If all goes well, in 3 minutes, we'll end the loop.
Will we go back to the start of the loop? Or just continue from where we are? I'm afraid
will continue from the present time.
So we memorized answers for nothing.
Wu Qiang held his head, crouching in pain. When we brought in 400 loopers, memorizing answers became pointless. I comforted him. Be glad, someone explained, why we stole a sports car from a dealership and sped all the way here.
I'm truly sorry for putting you through this and causing such serious consequences. Our institute will take full responsibility.
30 seconds left.
Proctor placed his phone on the ground, sat down, and watched silently as the second hand flashed on the screen. The rest of us followed his lead, sitting around the phone. 30 seconds never felt so long. I recalled the hundreds of loops I'd been through, like hundreds of dreams. I only remember the beginning and end of each dream. The middle became blurry and meaningless as the loop's end neared. I missed the loop again. I recall many things I wanted to try. Well, people are a bit greedy. The second hand hits 12. Nothing happens. No feeling of being pulled out. That damn exam broadcast didn't ring in my ears. We made it. We broke the loop. Then we got arrested. At exactly 2.5 hours and 1 minute, a bunch of cops stormed into our room. We four were pinned down. The old professor rushed over to explain to the cops, but all that time wormhole talk almost made them take him away too. In the police car, I watched the view, feeling great. I learned from the cop that our exam hall was in chaos. Many cops had entered the campus and subdued those raging students and teachers. Most of them, when restrained, were shouting, I was in a loop and such.
You're not a looper too, are you?
Facing the cop's question, I felt awkward, but I didn't plan to hide it. I was the first looper. Then I told the cop how I found the loop's pattern and how, with the others, we broke it. I bet the recorder nearby even thought his notes were like writing a sci-fi novel. Luckily, the institute said they take full responsibility. But just explaining to each department took a long time. Finally, people believed it was an experiment that never started. Or rather, one in another timeline. That caused this mess. Later, they decided to give us, the test takers at the center, a make-up exam. Of course, it wasn't the same test. Everything, as if it never happened. The loopers stranded outside the timeline got back on track.
How'd it go?
It was Lin Wu and Wu Qiyang. Just so.
Too bad we memorized all those answers.
I'm gonna be a race car driver.
Wu Qiyang's eyes were still fixed on the sports car in the 4S shop window.
Dan, can I be your assistant?
I guess.
Bro, we've been through life and death hundreds of times. Don't forget me when you make it big.
I smiled helplessly as they walked away, then turned and left. Maybe because I'd looped so many times, I suddenly realized this was actually the final exam. After this exam, I would end those so-called years of hard study. In a way, those years of hard study and the loops I went through were no different. Same things happening over and over. You could say escaping that life is every student's dream. But just like at the institute, sitting on the floor, watching the second hand, about to cross 12, felt the same. I started to miss that unchanging, yet deeply moving youth. I can never go back. Never back to that love-hate loop. No one stays in the loop forever. Time, after a few rounds, keeps pushing you forward. This time, I slowly walked my old escape route. Before I knew it, I was at the bus stop again. A bus pulled in. The doors opened, and the familiar cold air hit me.
Hey, kid. Coming.
Yeah.
Where to?
The last stop.